Hey all, today I am in snowy Michigan taking a look at the 2025 Nissan Murano. So I'm going to apologize for the state of the vehicle, but weather. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the exterior, but I do want to show you some of the new features. We're going to dig into the interior, and I'm going to talk about the 5 things that I really like and the 5 things that I think Nissan could have done better. My name is Jill Ciminillo with Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. Let's take a closer look at the 2025 Nissan Murano right now. Now, one of the biggest changes you're going to see on the 2025 Nissan Murano is to the face of the vehicle. The grille, the headlights, the daytime running lights, that has all been completely redesigned. This is also about 3 inches wider than the previous generation of the Nissan Murano. Now, the side profile is going to look similar, but the wheels are different. And when you come around to the back, I think this is where you can really tell that this vehicle has some extra girth. This is definitely a little bit wider. And I think it looks pretty good. Now I will point out, even though I don't have the blinkers on, your rear blinker is going to be here and it is amber. And when you look at the front, you have your headlights here, your daytime running lights are here, and your front blinker is just this top stripe right here, which is also amber. I feel like the snow is getting worse. I'm going to look like a drowned rat in this video, so it's time to go into the interior. Whew. So another thing that is new for this year, obviously, is going to be the interior design, but specifically this blue color is a new shade for the interior materials. This single piece of glass is also a new design. We've seen this in other Nissan vehicles, and it is, 2 12.3-inch screens. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and then you have this nice little navigation here to the right, which helps you navigate easily between the native navigation, native systems, and your Apple CarPlay. You have wireless charging right here, and while it does feel warm, I will say I had my phone in here for about a half an hour, and I didn't notice it overheating my phone. Now, I would need to spend a little bit more time with this wireless charger to make a strong opinion about whether or not it works, but so far, for just driving around and running errands, I think it's going to be fine. Now, this does have Google built in, so it'll allow you to say things like, "Hey Google, tell me a joke."
What kind of music do bunnies like best? Hip hop.
Hip. All right. Or you can say, "Hey Google, turn up the heat."
All right, turning up the temperature by 4 degrees.
But I found that you can't say something like, "Hey Google, I'm hot."
Maybe you'd like to go swimming.
Yeah, in this weather, I don't think I want to go swimming. Okay, so you do have Google built in. You also, like I said, you have the wireless Apple CarPlay, and so you can also use the voice commands for Siri for your iPhone as well. You have the digital display back here. You have capacitive touch kind of buttons here. I won't even say buttons, but like, one of the things that I discovered when I was playing around with the ProPilot Assist is this, you have to kind of give it a press, so it's not just a touch space, but to set, you don't move this down. You actually have to hit and press here. So, they are not buttons, but you do physically have to push on it, not just touch it. And then you will have your, screen controls and your ability to configure things a little bit more over here. So haven't played around with this too much yet, but this is going to be your screen. This is going to be your ProPilot Assist cruise control stuff. You also have the touch areas down here, the capacitive. Oh, and this is really interesting because this is actually a very light touch. I had the Infinity QX80 a couple of weeks ago, and I found that, you know, their touch spaces, you really had to press very hard to get any of these things to work. But on this, it's literally just a light touch, and then it vibrates when your finger presses the area. I like that. I can deal with this instead of having buttons. You also have USB-C ports in here, so no USB-A ports. And, you know, kind of taking it back a little bit, I will point out you do have a much more horizontal design. And, you know, on the exterior of the vehicle, you had more of a horizontal theme as well. So that is another design change. And it kind of plays into showing, you know, the space and width of the 2025 Murano. Now this is a platinum trim, so you do get these really nice quilted pattern seating surfaces. And again, as I pointed out, you have this blue interior available. Now, one of the interesting things that Nissan has done, and they've done in their vehicles for a while, is they have zero gravity seats. And essentially what that means is they've really done a lot of work at looking at the pressure points and what would make people uncomfortable. So they've really worked on the ergonomics of these seats, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But what they've done is they've carried those zero gravity seats into the back, especially on the platinum trim, and the outboard seats also have zero gravity seats, so your rear passengers, except for the person who's stuck in the middle, can also be comfortable. All right, it is now time for me to get into my likes and dislikes. Now, one of the biggest things that I really like about the 2025 Nissan Murano has to be the design and the overall use of materials in this vehicle. Again, this is a platinum trim, but I think they've really done a nice job with just everything. So first off, you have some like softer touch materials, even on the dash. You have this really cool reflective like aluminum piece on the top here. You've got some nice stitching on the dash. You've got the nice stitching on the seats. You just have some really nice accent pieces. And yeah, I think I said it before, but I like how easy it is to maneuver these little touch areas here. There's so many nice little just finishing touches on this vehicle that are really well done. And I know the exterior design is going to be a little bit polarizing, but I really like that too, because when you see this going down the road, it doesn't look like anything else. So I like that. Another thing I like is actually this shelf that they've got going on, and they specifically designed this in so that when you are driving, you can put your thumb here and then hit your buttons, and you can maneuver. It's kind of like a stabilizing feature so that you can make sure that you are hitting the areas that you intend to hit when you are going through the different menus and apps and features on the infotainment screen. So I like that, especially because the buttons on this are a little bit small. I really like the Google built-in. I think that it is very seamless and very seamlessly integrated. It works really well. The voice commands are natural. I like the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, along with the wireless charging. Again, TBD on whether this overheats my phone, but it doesn't in normal errand running situations. Now I know we're sitting here, so you probably really can't tell, but they've done a lot of work with the noise, vibration, and harshness in this vehicle, from extra materials and padding and acoustic glass in the front on the platinum trim. And I think it really has done a nice job of making this vehicle quieter while you are driving on road. Now, you're always gonna have some road noise creeping into the cabin, but it's muted, and I was listening to podcasts while I was doing my quick turn, and I didn't have to like crank up the volume to hear it over wind noise, road noise, or just silly things creeping into the cabin. Now I'm going to flip the camera around because I want to dig into these seats a little bit more. Nissan has been using zero gravity seats in its vehicles for quite a while now, and I have always been a huge fan of the seats in the Murano, and I have more than once said that these are probably the most comfortable seats I've ever sat in, and I'm pleased to report this is still true. And it's really funny because during the press presentation, they specifically asked me, because of my size, if I thought these seats were comfortable. So Nissan, I have to tell you, you managed to hit the 5th percentile female just fine. Can't speak for the tall guys, but the shorties out there are gonna love these seats. Now, the final thing I want to talk about on my like list is going to be the ride and handling. We have not had the best road conditions today while we've been driving, and the Nissan Murano did really well, whether it was accelerating, driving in slushy, snowy, unplowed roads, or whether I was just cruising on surface streets that had been cleared. This did really well. We went over some highway surfaces, we went over some bumpy pothole surfaces, and I would say that the biggest thing about this vehicle is that it's just comfortable. We'll get into the driving impressions a little bit more towards the end, but I did want to share that how this vehicle handles is on the like list. All right, it is now time for me to dig into the things that I don't like, and yeah, I'm going to start with my driving position. While Nissan did a really good job with the seats for the shorties, this is less than ideal. I have a lot of space here where I hang my hand over, but this is the driving position I need to be able to reach the pedals. I have plenty of space, you know, for my knee, so that's not the problem. The problem is I just feel really close to the steering wheel. And I just wish, and so like you can move the steering wheel out further, which I don't want. I want to be able to move it probably an inch or two more in. I would also like to move it down a little bit further because I'm sitting kind of high. I don't know. I mean, and this may be just the high or low, like the tilt part of it is probably just personal preference. But the telescoping, yeah, this is less than ideal for someone who's on the short side of the spectrum. I would be really worried about airbags. I'd be very worried about airbags in this. Now, most automakers do employ the use of dual stage airbags. So because my seat's far forward, it wouldn't deploy as big or as hard as it would for somebody who's further back. But I don't have a measuring stick on me at the moment, but I would say if this is 10 inches, it is just 10 inches. And 10 inches is the safety standard from the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They say you need to be at least 10 inches. I don't feel good about this. So that is the biggest thing that I don't like on the 2025 Nissan Murano. While we're here, the other thing that I want to talk about is ProPilot Assist. I wasn't really able to play around with it because weather, but this only has the 1.1 version available. So this is, you know, the really good steering assist and speed modulation, but it doesn't have the hands-free capability, and I think that is a little bit weird for a vehicle that starts at about $40,000. So the Nissan Rogue, which is a lesser vehicle than this, has the, I think it's the 2.0 ProPilot Assist, which allows you to drive hands-free, but the Nissan Murano does not, and I think that's a little bit of a miss, and I think that's a little bit weird. So I did ask during the presentation if this was going to be available, and they said it's something that they're looking at, but it is not something that could be an over-the-air update on this vehicle. There does actually have to be some hardware installation. So if a hands-free driving system is something that you're looking for, you are going to have to go down to the Nissan Rogue, or you're going to have to wait until they come out with it on this model in future model years. All right, the final things that I don't like, I'm probably picking some nits here, but the first thing I'm going to point to is these icons are really small. And Nissan does have some autonomy in how this looks, and I really wish they were able to make these icons a little bit bigger. I mean, my fingers are really small, and you can see that my fingers almost entirely cover these icons. And so while you're driving, if you're reaching to touch something, you could, I think, easily miss it. And these are also a little bit small. So I just wish these icons were a little bit bigger, you know, especially these icons here. There's space for that. It could be designed into it. You've got, you know, a nice big screen, 12.3 inches. I'd like the icons to just be a little bit bigger. And again, I'm probably picking nits here. Now, another thing that I want to talk about, and you can't really tell right here, but this is kind of a narrow view out of the rear view mirror. So the rear window is just a little bit narrower than I would like, and I personally like to look really far back when I'm driving just to see what's going on behind me. If somebody's coming up fast, that I need to make sure that I'm moving one way or the other to get out of their way. I don't know. I couldn't see back as far as I wanted to from this rear view, picking nits. Now, the final thing I'm going to point to, because I know all of you are going to talk about it, is this right here. You do have a small amount of shiny black plastic. And I don't actually like the location of it. So like this doesn't bother me. I'm not going to touch this. It may get a little bit dusty, but I think this looks nice. But putting it here by your push button gearing, like this is going to get very fingerprinted. If you have beverages in here, things are going to spill. And so that placement, I think, is not ideal. You know, I'd love to see this material maybe transferred down here, or just something else used in this space other than the shiny black plastic, because it'll scratch. You know, I've got a pen in here. Like I could, like throwing stuff in this little cubby space here, has the potential to scratch and dust and fingerprint. So I don't know. I would like to see a different material used here. All right, now I want to do some very brief driving impressions. I've had about an hour and a half behind the wheel, but overall, I want to say my impressions are very favorable, driving position aside. I guess I should say steering wheel position aside. I've got good visibility out of all of the windows. This is really comfortable. It handles really well. And even in the snowy, slushy conditions, I felt very confident that this vehicle would handle well and do what I wanted to do. I didn't feel like it was slip sliding, and I don't know, it is really good. Now, this has a 2.0 liter engine. I want to say it's 241 horsepower and like 263 pound-feet of torque. We'll double check those specs and we'll list them somewhere. But this is just enough power to, again, make you feel confident and to get you into and out of situations like accelerating out of a light, merging onto the highway, passing on the highway. It is just enough power. And I know this is going to be a question in many people's minds. This no longer has a CVT. This has a 9-speed automatic transmission. So this is a completely new powertrain, and I like what it does. So if I had to summarize the 2025 Nissan Murano, I would say this is maybe a little bit polarizing to the design, but on the interior, it is a lot of luxury, very comfortable. Didn't even try out the massaging seats, but this has it. And, you know, it just handles really well. Overall, I like it. I really like it. Blue interior and all. That is what I have for you today in the 2025 Nissan Murano. Thanks for watching, and I will see you down the road.